Oh boy, it is not a good year for Intel fans. How's it going, good people? My name's Pedro, and a few days ago, Dr. Lisa Su, the CEO of AMD, took to the stage and showed off the new Ryzen 5000 series CPUs, as if our wallets needed any more damage after Nvidia went ahead and dropped the new RTX 30 series cards on us. But I digress. Now I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. Initially, I expected AMD to sort of cruise by 2020, and then come out next year with their new Zen 3 architecture and big Navi GPUs, but boy was I wrong. Lisa Su took the stage a few days ago and not only unveiled the new Ryzen 5000 CPUs, with an offering all the way from the Ryzen 5 family all the way to the high-end Ryzen 9, but along with that as well, they also gave a sneak preview to what's to come with the new big Navi GPUs from AMD. Safe to say that it's going to be a very interesting time for anyone who's an AMD fan or anyone who's a fan of competition in general, with these new Ryzen 5000 series CPU claiming to take the crown from Intel for the best gaming CPU on the market. To start with, AMD opened up by talking about how disruptive their new CPUs have been, and they credit this all to their chiplet and modular style design of the CPU dies itself. Now this basically allows AMD to work on multiple generations of their CPUs in parallel and allowing them to leapfrog and use the advancements that have created from previous generations to their advantage in creating future CPUs down the track. And this is being reflected by going from a 14nm process all the way down to a 7nm process with a 5nm chip soon to come in 2021. And from what they're claiming is that they're on track to deliver the new, Ryzen 6000 series CPUs next year. Now, because of this modular design, this has really allowed AMD to go all the way from a 14nm process down to a 7nm process, and like I said before, soon to a 5nm process in 2021. Whereas Intel, on the other hand, has, let's just say, consistently churned out a 14nm chip almost every year. And I'm sure everyone's seen the meme how CPUs have really stagnated from Intel over the last 5 or 6 years. And unfortunately, it's a little true at the moment, with Ryzen going leaps and bounds above Intel, moving from 14 to 12, now to 7 and soon to 5nm. Now real quick, when I say 14, 7 and 5nm, I'm specifically talking about the generational improvements you get, going from one CPU generation to the next. Now, on a high level, some of these specs that have been thrown around is that there is a bump in L3 cache, so this is going from 16 megabytes on a single chip all the way up to 32 megabytes that all 8 cores share now. Along with that, there's a significant improvement in instructions per clock. And finally, there's also a bunch of latency improvements on the chips itself. Now, not to bore anyone with any of these specifications themselves, but basically this all means one thing and one thing alone, that Ryzen 5000 is the new king of single core performance. Previously, Intel used to hold that as their high ground, and the one sort of claim that they had, where if you wanted a lot of cores, you'd go AMD, but if you wanted a gaming CPU, you'd go Intel. Not anymore. From the specs that they're boasting, and even the Cinebench scores that they were showing off, in the worst case scenario, AMD meets Intel. And in almost every other scenario apart from that, AMD smashes Intel out of the park, with on average 10 to up to 20% improvement on their chips alone. So now to round out the event, AMD went ahead and unveiled the first wave of the new Ryzen 3 CPUs. On the low end, you have the Ryzen 5 5600X, follow that up with the Ryzen 7 5800X, and then on the high end, you have the R9 5900X and 5950. Naming schemes aside though, this is the new powerhouse from AMD, with a lot of computing in a pretty affordable package if you ask me. All of these CPUs will be available on November 5th, and the best part is if you have an X470 motherboard or a B450 motherboard or newer, you basically need a BIOS update and you're good to go. So this really provides a lot of value to everyone without necessarily needing to buy a new motherboard altogether. So it's safe to say I'm pretty excited about it, and honestly you should be too. There's a great amount of value and a great amount of competition coming out of these chips. But one thing to note real quick with the new Ryzen CPUs is that they are for the first time going to be more expensive than their Intel counterparts, but with them taking the cake on single core performance and still offering more cores than the Intel counterparts, I think that little bit of a higher price definitely is merited from AMD. Well, that wraps it up for the new Ryzen 5000 series CPUs. All in all, I'm pretty excited for this because I think it brings a great deal of value and even more competition into the market now as well. Obviously, I feel like Intel really needs to either pull their pants up and really deliver some good value to get people back on board. If you like this video, definitely hit that like button. Get subscribed if you're looking forward to more comment, and let me know down below if you're going to be picking up one of the new Ryzen CPUs. Either way guys, my name's been Pedro, hope you all have a good one.